जय गुरु जी, शुक्राना गुरु जी, अनंतम शुक्राना मेरे मालिक. With the blessings of Guruji Maharaj, I Pooja Jain is going to read page number 3 to 8 of Guruji book Light of Divinity. Thank you Guruji. Page number 3. A finger that points to the moon. Imagine a towering mountain and a blemishless mirror fused into one. Imagine, if you can, that this mountain was made of incandescent light, and imagine that you were put before this mountain, your breath frozen in your throat. You looked at it. This is what your first darshan of Guruji would be like. When he wills this meeting to happen, he will penetrate into the core of your being. You will be denuded of all pretension. Your soul will be exposed to his gaze. And when you see yourself in him, when you glimpse your own lion-like divinity, you will truly be his disciple. Do not imagine that this meeting will not happen. Do not imagine that the Guru was made up of the body and has disappeared into the void. There are more darshans to come, 100,000 meetings to happen, and a majestic promise to be fulfilled between Guruji and his beloved disciples. The promise of love, that the Guru and the disciple be united in the clasp of eternity. We can keep our part of the promise by beginning to know ourselves. For the Satguru, our Guruji, is a mirror put up before our eyes so that we can recognize ourselves. The Guru, as the word itself shows, removes the darkness, goo of ignorance with the light, rue of wisdom. In this nation's sacred tradition, the Guru is put on a pedestal even higher than that of gods. He is seen as the sign qua non of the spiritual journey. He is the guide without whom the tentative first-time climber and the stalwart spiritual mountaineer are both lost. He is not only the path, not only the gate through which the seeker goes, but also the goal, the top of the mountain. He is the pole star in the journey from darkness to light, from ignorance to self-illumination, and all the scriptures of the world are but feeble commentaries on his nature. They are the fingers that point to the moon. But when you have Guruji Darshan, the moon is right before you, incandescent. If you choose to avert your gaze, not once, but again and again, the light of truth is too strong for you. The Guruji call is to divine in you. His word or shabad, his hukam or fate is like the pebble that hits the lake. The entire lake shivers with the foam of its energy, and know that this energy is contagious. It is inescapable. Meeting the Guru or having his darshan is not like going for a social visit. It is like going to war, knowing you are going to lose. It is like watching a fire burn the house of your ego down. It is preparation to meet the highest, for the Satguru robs man of his defenses. So you cannot win over a Satguru with words. You cannot put up an appearance before him. He knows the truth of your being. Accept that. Hide nothing. Don't play games with him. When you come to him, it is not who you are that matters. It is not how confounded you are, or how dark your deeds were, or what promise of saintliness you are now making. What matters is whether you have said yes. That yes is the first, most firm footstep on the spiritual journey. That yes brings innumerable gifts. That yes claps you to the Guruji being with the force that even death cannot sunder. That yes being brings the Guru's entire clemency, his grace to you, and that yes is perhaps the disciple's only task. The rest of the journey is deformation, footstep by footstep of the first step. That yes is the miracle, the rest are miraculous details. An ancient prayer invoked the Guru as Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwarya, Guru Sakshat Parbrahm, Tasme Shri Guru Ve Namaha. The holy of gods, for the Guru being is limitless. He is not just the Brahma, the preserver, the resurrector Maheshwar or God absolute Parbrahm. He is all creation himself. He is the thousand-eyed, thousand-limbed, thousand-mouthed God. He is the seed, the spore, the shape and the tree of life. No one knows him. The wise are silent about his nature, but before the mirror of the Guru, the disciple sees and knows. That seeing is the true darshan. All the rest are preliminaries that help lead him there. That knowing is truly touching the Guru's feet, for in the moment of illumination the Guru is revealed with footsteps of Shraddha. The disciple's journey towards the Guru is very strange. The disciple is blind, he is ignorant and cannot see the path. He cannot move ahead on his own. It is the Guru who leads him on. Thus the Guru is not only the goal of the disciple, he is also the guide, the one to whom we are attached with the rope of faith on our mountain climb. Trust thus is the first prerequisite. If you cannot trust the Guru, you cannot be led. Hence, even though the Guru is the fountainhead of spirituality, it has been advocated that would-be disciple check out the Guru before wholeheartedly accepting him. The Buddha advised as much. Just as gold is examined through burning, cutting and rubbing, so you should thoroughly test my teaching and accept them, but never out of reverence for me. Swami Vivekananda had such an attitude at first towards Shri Ramakrishna Paramhansa. Once the young disciple wanted to test his master's statement that he was unaffected by money. So he put a coin below Ramakrishna's pillow. The Guru could not sleep that night. Vivekananda test had merely proven the spiritual armor of his Guru. Rid of doubt, the disciple can humbly approach the Guru. His relationship with his spiritual guide rests on a firm footing. He can entrust himself to his Guru in life as in death. Only after the strong foundation of trust or Shraddha has been laid is the spiritual superstructure built. Man has to realize anew that he is a spiritual being made in his image. The Guru prods the disciple to realize his divinity. A small story narrates how a cub had been separated from his tribe of lions. He began to live with sheep. In time, his behavior became exactly like theirs. He no longer roared, he bleated. A tiger saw him one day and was overcome by surprise. He caught hold of the still young cub and gave heart shake. What is the matter with you? The tiger roared. Why do you behave like a sheep? The terrified cub insisted that the tiger was mistaken. He was just a sheep. The tiger took the cub to a lake. The clear water reflected the cub's face. Immediately he realized his true nature. The Guru, none too easy task, is somewhat similar. He demolishes the appearance on which was mistaken identity rest. We are his children, not creatures of mortal flesh and feverish blood. We are divine personages clothed in hide, not desire-led animals. We are souls encased in bodies, not bodies with souls. Such a turnaround occurs only when the disciple truly touches the Guruji's feet. That is when his ego flakes away from his self. Only then does he receive the spiritual charge that wakes him up. The Guru is a spiritual powerhouse transmitting the current of spirituality into his disciple. At his graceful touch, the disciple awakens. Much preparatory work has to be done. However, we are laden with the psychological ferment and karmic baggage of lifetimes. The powerful eddies generated by a our karmas, acting on minds not equipped with the right attitudes, can break our legs even as the journey begins. So the Guru puts us in a situation where we learn life lessons armed with the aches of right attitude. We hew our path through the many obstacles of life. The Guruji grace is never more evident when life comes up with the challenge or a test. At such time, to quicken the spiritual evaluation of his child, the Guru can take the disciple karma upon himself, elevating its misery causing effects, sensing that we are about to set our foot on a karmic crevasse. He lifts us up and carries us on his own shoulder. What enormous can be heaped on such a Guru? He can only be silently loved, fully followed. Yet, there are times when the disciple resents his Guru. The Guru leaves no psychological stone unturned to perfect his spiritual son, but the disciple commitment with as the Guru operates on his mental makeup. Howsoever much the disciple may flinch from his Guru's ego-hurting blows, the Guru, bent on the disciple's perfection, carries his task through. At such weak moments, the disciple cannot summon required to thwart his habits, but he need only realize it is taking pains on his behalf. The Guru's sole interest, the self-interest concealed in every human relationship, is the disciple. His only interest is to take the disciple Godward, whether he moves mountains of karmas out of the disciple's way to do this, whether he heals him of disease or of mental plagues, that is to his wish. These are only means to the end of leading the disciple to God. The Guru selflessly spends a huge amount of energy and time in fashioning a disciple. The journey up the spiritual mountain is no picnic. Spirituality, as the Satguru transmits it, is not a comfort-giving philosophy. It is no cosmic cream that can make our social faces and psychological mask look more beautiful for the moment. It is not a set of rituals and rites that we can fulfill to gratify ourselves or to flatter God. The spiritual terrain is a life-consuming affair. It is not a path that once tread can be walked out of. Once you are with the Guru, once you accept his stewardship, you must go where he leads you. The Guru is our only chance to reclaim our divinity. He is the ladder that leads to God. He is the one who grants us self-realization. Everything in his hands is a device, from how he escapes the crowd to how he positions his relationship with us. But at all times he is our Guru. No matter whether he is choking or lending an ear to the happening of the day, he is our Guru, first, foremost and last, and only through pleasing him or through attempting to please him shall the disciple succeed in getting to his cherished goal. Remember also that the Guru is not to be literally emulated. There is a story of Adi Shankara and a disciple who used to imitate each and every action of the great master. On a pilgrimage, the master stopped to take some alcohol from the hands of a peasant. The disciple, close on his heels, did so likewise, and probably with great enthusiasm. Some distance ahead, the great Vedanti stopped again. Molten iron was coming out of an iron foundry. Unconcernedly, Shri Shankara asked for the liquid, cupped his hands and took a long sip. The disciple was disarmed. He couldn't follow his master now. The Guru's words have to be followed in letter and spirit, no doubt. Yet the disciple should not imagine himself to be the Guru under any condition. It is much better to be continually engaged in lovingly remembering the Guru. That way, the Guru and the disciple are always linked in spirit. Spirituality in the hands of the Guru is a weapon to disarm our ego. Unless we are ready to be thus mercilessly exposed, do seek a Guru or say you follow him. If you come to a Guru, that you will not receive continual ego massages. In fact, Once you have fallen for a guru, even slight indication of his favor may disappear. The greatness of the guru lies in that he takes us as we are, warts and all. He loves us in spite of our blemishes. He sets no preconditions for our entering his path. Entirely self-sufficient, absorbed in cosmic bliss, he wants nothing, craves nothing. In his vision all are alike. He sees no distinction. He favors none. Like the sky, he compasses all without touching them. He is the eternal witness. His unblinking eye, steadfast on eternity, is intimate with each and every flowing thought in the stream of his disciple minds. The Guru is the highest. He is incomparable. His grandeur is above even that of lords of heaven. The sun, the moon, the stars are but incrustations of finite cosmic dust on his robe. The Holy Trinity, the countless gods and goddesses, the yogic powers are at his feet, ready to do his bidding. The Guru is God. The Guru is Shiva himself. In the Shiv Purana, Lord Shiva denies Lord Brahma's plea to create beings bound by mortality. He instead vows to descend on earth to remove such beings from the incessant round of births and deaths. He came as Guruji. In the dust of his feet, what bliss! May Guruji have mercy on you and I. May the rain of his mercy fall on our foolish heads. May we thought the very charge of his being he laid at his feet. जय गुरु जी, शुक्राना गुरु जी, अनंतम शुक्राना मेरे मालिक. जय गुरु जी.